My name is Cecil. The other day, my daughter surprised me by asking if I could teach her how to do makeup. She's still in elementary school, but it seems like girls these days grow up so fast. When I was her age, I was excited about getting cheap candies that came with toy necklaces or lipsticks from vending machines. It feels like just yesterday I was changing her diapers, and now she's becoming a young lady. It almost brings tears to my eyes. Today, I want to reminisce about a time when I was more into beauty. It was about 8 years ago. I had just finished staying at my parents' house for a month to prepare for giving birth and return home to my husband Tommy with our baby. I thought we were starting our happy life as a family of 3, but it turned out to be a family of 4. My mother-in-law, Melinda, who was supposed to be at her own house, was unexpectedly there to greet me. I thought my son might struggle on his own, so I moved in to help out. Maybe men have a hard time with daily tasks when they're alone. I thanked Melinda for taking care of my husband, and she seemed pleased. When I entered the house, everything was tidy and the air was fresh. It seemed like having Melinda around was a good idea. But then, a problem came up. My wedding ring, which I had to take off during pregnancy, was missing from the bedroom drawer where it should have been. I searched everywhere but couldn't find it. What was even weirder was that my special bag and shoes were also gone. These were items I hardly ever used and kept stored away. Feeling uneasy, I asked Melinda if she had tidied up the bedroom closet. She said she hadn't touched it. If Melinda didn't tidy up, then someone must have taken my things. I asked her if she noticed anything unusual while I was away. I asked both my husband and Melinda if they knew anything about the missing items, but they avoided making eye contact and denied that anything was wrong. They insisted that everything was normal. I tried to explain to them that my wedding ring, brand name bag, and shoes were missing, and it seemed like my bedroom had been burglarized. Melinda seemed surprised and asked if I was sure I had searched everywhere. In a panic, I nodded at her while calling the police on my mobile phone. When Melinda questioned why I was calling the police, I froze, caught off guard by her reaction. The police on the phone asked for details, and I struggled to provide them while feeling Melinda's disapproving gaze. In less than 10 minutes, 2 police officers arrived at our home. Despite Melinda's insistence that it was all a misunderstanding, the officers wanted to see the room where the theft occurred. It was unsettling to realize that both Melinda and I were supposed to be victims in this situation. The idea of strangers entering our home made me feel faint, while Melinda was red-faced with anger, insisting that we didn't need the police. Even my husband tried to calm me down, saying it was just a couple of rings and everything would be fine. Just a ring or two? I snapped back. Those are our cherished rings that we bought together. They're irreplaceable. The police officer watched me closely and then asked me to show him the room where the incident occurred. He suggested that my husband and mother-in-law stay in the living room while we talked. As we walked to the bedroom, Melinda continued to protest angrily, saying it wasn't right to snoop around someone's home. But I couldn't help but think that if the house was in my husband's name, it was also my home. The older officer seemed puzzled by their behavior and asked if I had been living with my mother-in-law all this time. I explained that I had returned from my parents' home just today and discovered that Melinda had been living here while I was away. When asked if my husband had discussed letting his mother stay, I said I never agreed to it. Before I left for my parents' house, the missing items were indeed here. I didn't have proof for the ring and bag, but I did have a photo of the shoes. I was considering selling them secondhand. See, the save date on the data is exactly a month ago, right? The police officer said, narrowing his eyes as if he was starting to piece something together. Let's take a look at the room, he suggested. I led the officer to the bedroom and explained again where the missing items had been stored while he collected fingerprints. As he was doing so, he noticed a handkerchief on the shelf that was unfamiliar to me. What's that? He asked, pointing to it. I examined it closely and realized it wasn't mine or my husband's. I explained that the shelf was where we kept our favorite photos and paintings, and my husband knew I always kept it tidy. I had never seen that handkerchief there before. Feeling uneasy, I apologized for not noticing it earlier. It seemed strange that valuable items had gone missing while unfamiliar ones were appearing. The officer asked for permission to investigate further, and I agreed. To my surprise, he found a small camera hidden inside the handkerchief. For what? Espionage? I wondered aloud. The officer remained calm amidst my confusion and checked other drawers, different from where the missing items were stored. Eventually, he found a cable in a drawer near my husband's side of the bed. The cable fit the small camera he had found earlier, the officer remarked with a wry smile. The mother's behavior is a bit suspicious, but the husband seems fishy too. I struggled to understand the situation and asked, "What do you mean? Your husband might have installed this camera." The officer explained that they found a cable for playback and wanted to check the video. "Can I use that computer?" he asked, pointing to my husband's laptop. Confused but hopeful to uncover the truth, I agreed. The officer connected the camera to the laptop effortlessly, and the laptop recognized it, opening up the menu. He selected a command and chose a random file from a folder. To our shock, the video displayed our bedroom. I went with the officer to the living room where my husband and Melinda were waiting. Melinda immediately complained, but we had to undergo questioning, feeling like criminals. My husband was also in a foul mood, dismissing it as a fuss over nothing. "Enough. Whose fault is this?" I exclaimed in anger, slamming my hand on the living room table. "I'm still recovering from giving birth, and they made me run around in panic like this. How dare you act so brazenly after what you've done?" "I know everything now. Look at this," I said, taking the laptop from the officer and playing the video we had just seen. My husband and Melinda gasped as they watched themselves on screen, rummaging through the bedroom shelves, taking my ring and bag, and leaving. In the video, my husband was telling Melinda about selling the stolen items. "We can both have some fun," Melinda laughed, surprising me with her carefree attitude. "Who would have thought she had such sellable items?" she remarked. "It's hard to prosecute family living together for theft," she added, seemingly unfazed. "Mom, you're amazing, so knowledgeable, so shameless," my daughter chimed in. Despite their misdeeds being pointed out, they showed no signs of guilt. Instead, the conversation suggested they were proud of their cunning. I couldn't believe that the culprits were inside the house all along. My agitation and anger grew, while my husband looked scared. Melinda still denied any wrongdoing, despite being clearly seen in the video. "Okay, since you insist, let's watch this," I said, playing a different video. "Oh, come on. What about your wife?" Melinda exclaimed, trying to deflect attention. The video showed Melinda intimately engaged with a much younger man on a bed. She seemed unconcerned about her husband, referring to him as Rocky and expressing happiness about their affair. "Don't worry, I'll give you some money," she assured the younger man, wrapping her arms around his neck. It was as if she was trying to absorb his youthfulness. Though I hadn't seen it before, it resembled something straight out of a club scene. "Thank you, Melinda. I love you, you're so sweet," I said sarcastically as we watched the video. Melinda's alluring voice and actions on screen made even my husband look away, unable to bear it. The young officer seemed queasy, on the verge of saying, "Ew," while the older officer quietly scolded him. "Hey, stop it. Don't show such nonsense," Melinda yelled, her face turning bright red. My husband, perhaps feeling it wasn't his concern, seemed about to laugh at Melinda losing her composure. "Really, Tommy? You think it's funny, huh?" I challenged him, playing another video. As the videos played on, revealing my husband's affairs, the young police officer burst into uncontrollable laughter while the older one scolded him again. In one video, Ashley was stroking my husband's head, asking how many other women he was seeing. My husband responded with practiced lines, claiming she was the only one. The pattern repeated with the other women, each time promising gifts in exchange for secrecy. It was clear my husband had been leading a double life, lavishing gifts on these women. "You might have noticed he's making a huge loss buying brand name items for each encounter," I remarked bitterly. The only video showing Melinda's actions was that one, suggesting the recording button was accidentally left on, capturing the moment. Melinda not only stole my things, but also got caught in her own actions. Rest assured, it's not some peculiar hobby to watch Melinda's actions, or maybe it is. Melinda and my husband, embarrassed and exposed even to the police, were pale and slumped in defeat. But it wasn't over yet. Just as I thought this, the intercom rang. "They're here," I said. Melinda looked at me with a tired face, but I ignored her gaze and went to the entrance to welcome Bruce. When Melinda saw Bruce, she lost her words and screamed, "Seems like you were cheating in your son's house, huh?" I told him. No, it's not like that," my husband protested. "What do you mean it's not?" Bruce asked. "Cecil, could you play the video?" "With pleasure," I said, casting a cold glance at the bewildered Melinda. Bruce burst into loud laughter as he watched her flirtatious video. An old woman like this seducing a young man for money, aren't you ashamed? He joked. Melinda blushed furiously, her previously defiant attitude gone. That was funny. Let's see my sons too. Let's see how much he's grown, Bruce said, laughing while focusing on a particular part of my husband in the video. After watching all the infidelity videos, Bruce commented with a straight face, both mother and son letting young people take their money. Beyond disappointing, it's pitiful. Needless to say, Melinda and my husband would have preferred being laughed at. What we learned from my questioning was that Melinda accidentally found out about my husband's affairs. She kept it secret in exchange for using our house to meet her own lover. For Melinda, it was embarrassing to be seen with a much younger man, and her lover, lacking money and having a wife, couldn't easily find places to meet. For my husband, having the freedom to invite girls he met online without going out was cheaper and much more convenient. Thus, Melinda and my husband, keeping each other's affairs secret, turned this house into their paradise of indulgence, becoming accomplices. Their arrangement worked by one leaving the house while the other met their lover. Melinda never imagined the videos would be accidentally recorded. I'm sorry, Cecile. Bruce, I'll return the money. Do anything, please forgive me, Melinda and my husband begged, bowing their heads. Bruce and I exchanged glances and laughed. You'll do anything, right? Indeed, anything, we both said. Of course, they answered. Then let's divorce, we declared simultaneously, leaving my husband and Melinda in shock. You said you'd do anything, right? Let's get a divorce, I insisted. No, wait. Anything but that, please, Melinda pleaded desperately, but Bruce refused without hesitation. The divorce was not retracted. My husband, too, was crying and deeply apologizing, but I did not withdraw the divorce either. Thus, only hours after returning from my parents' home post-childbirth, my divorce was decided upon under police supervision. Later, I had my husband pay me the same amount as the sold items as compensation in the divorce trial. Additionally, I demanded double the standard amount for alimony and compensation for infidelity. When asked why double, I slightly intimidated them by implying that their mistresses might be married, and I could inform their spouses. This was mainly a bluff, as I didn't even know their names at the time. The threat seemed effective immediately, given the number of mistresses involved. My husband, terrified at the thought of being sued by each spouse, agreed to pay double the standard amount. Meanwhile, Bruce furiously obtained the lover's contact details from a crying Melinda and called him over. He informed the lover and his wife of the affair, leading to their divorce too. Both spouses demanded compensation from their cheating partners in the divorce trials. Though I promised not to inform the mistress's spouses, I never said I wouldn't demand compensation from the mistresses themselves. After extracting all the communication from my husband's smartphone, I contacted each woman to claim compensation for the affair, which they agreed to pay secretly. I was glad my husband had so many mistresses. It turned out to be quite profitable. But as a single mother without a steady job, I knew I could never have too much money. Turning the harm I suffered into financial compensation didn't erase the damage done, so with a substantial sum of money, I divorced my husband. 8 years have passed since then. Eventually, my husband ended up paying compensation to his mistresses' spouses too. Their husbands, noticing their wives suddenly had a lot of money, grew suspicious. This led to the discovery of the affairs, resulting in some divorces. My husband, now overwhelmed with debt from the numerous compensations, was offered help by a certain woman, whom he thought was a goddess descended. However, she turned out to be a bad influence. He thought they were close to marriage, only to find out later she was already engaged to another man. My husband had spent what little money he had on a ring and dates for her, only to end up with a big loss and a broken heart. He never learns. Of course, I can't muster any sympathy for him, I thought to myself. Melinda, having proposed marriage to her affair partner after her divorce, was spectacularly rejected. Still, she didn't give up, repeatedly ambushing him on his commute until she was cautioned under a public nuisance ordinance. Naturally, that was the end of her relationship with her lover, who, as Bruce said, had only seen her as a wallet from the start. Well, everyone should be able to see it. Melinda was the only one who hadn't realized she was being used. It's a laughable tale. As for Bruce, after separating from Melinda and becoming estranged from his son, I worried about him being alone. But it seems the compensation money from the divorce trial sparked an interest in bonsai. Now, he's happily involved in a circle with people who share his hobby. That's a relief, though I didn't expect it. I looked him up, and sure enough, he'd even set up an SNS account. I've discreetly followed you, father-in-law, and me, honestly fed up with men. Marriage, no more, and still going strong. As a single mother, I relied on my parents until my child was old enough for daycare, then started job hunting, juggling child rearing. It took about a year, but I found a great company that's understanding of single mothers. There are others like me there, so although we sometimes work late, we're usually allowed to leave on time. I used to think single mothers had to work non-stop, but with proper allowances and just my daughter to care for, we live quite normally without extravagant luxuries. There's talk of a promotion when my child reaches middle school. I haven't decided yet, but I want to consider what will make my daughter happiest and my parents too. Despite everything, the joy comes from meals shared with my daughter and sometimes my parents. Oh, I did well to leave that man. Serves him right. He never even got to be called dad by my adorable daughter. My marriage ended in a crazy way, but as a parent I still hope my daughter finds a good person and has a happy marriage. Until the day she brings home a wonderful man, I'll do my best as a mother. So off to work again today.